Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the fastest growing, fastest rising post-professional wrestling show in all of sports entertainment. Welcome back to Ringside Conversations. I am your host, Roddy of Crinchman Media. We are fresh off of Monday Night RAW, and what a show. I'm talking like it was insane how it opened to how it ended. And speaking of the opening, we get to have a bunch of masked men via Seth freaking Rollins come out to the ring, with Seth being in the middle of that said ring. He then cuts a promo about since he's the one who started the vision, he created the vision, he gets to be the one to kill the vision, in which Paul Heyman comes out. And I'm sure you guys have all seen the Oscars, okay? Michael B. Jordan, all deserved. He won that mug. Paul Heyman needs to be nominated for an Oscar, okay? Because this is peak performance by Paul Heyman. He let his beard grow out. He has a red, watery, swollen eye, and he looks devastated and pissed off of the fact that Seth Rollins is in that ring. And considering the fact that last time we saw them both in the ring together, Seth Rollins was the one to curve stomp his head and send him to the hospital. So, with that being said, Paul Heyman makes it short and sweet. F-A-F-O. F-A-F-O. F-A-F-5. Brock Lesnar comes out. And when you see the Beast, it kind of lets you know, okay, this is the direction they are deciding to go with WrestleMania. Instead of having an open challenge for Brock, Brock's going to come out and just attack everybody in sight, which he does, except for Seth Rollins. He takes out every mask. There's at least maybe 20 masked guys. Brock is even counting every last one of them as he's making his way to them. Suplex after suplex after suplex after suplex after suplex. He even yells at them and they ran away, which honestly, I would too. Like, why would I want to, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, the lights go out as soon as Brock and Seth share a stare down in the middle of the ring, and Oba Femi comes out. Michael Cole said it best. Holy shit. Because as they share their own stare down in the middle of that ring, Seth Rollins is creeping up by Brock for Brock to turn his attention to him. And then once he turns around, Oba Femi gives him a fall from grace powerbomb. And Michael Cole says, holy shit. And that was the most insane way to start off Monday Night Raw. Oba Femi puts his foot on Brock Lesnar's chest and points to the WrestleMania sign. It is late. Then later in the evening, we find out that it is indeed Brock Lesnar versus Oba freaking Femi. I'm hyped, bro. This is two humongous beings just going straight at it. And I personally think Brock should lose. I feel like if this is an opportunity to develop a new monster in the WWE, this is the time, place. It's just in it for the cards for Oba Femi, in my opinion. Moving on to our first match of the evening, being El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano. I'm going to save myself the stutterness and the amount of times I had to cut by saying original and current El Grande Americano. At this point, if you see what happens, you'll know who I'm referring to, okay? So real quick before I get to the match, context here. At AAA, we now have El Grande Americano, who won a match to declare him the number one contender, essentially, for the AAA Mega Championship, being Dominic Mysterio. So, in that match, El Grande Americano and El Grande Americano were in the same match, in which they end up fighting amongst the crowd area. And El Grande Americano, via the help of El Rio and Bravo, gets handcuffed on the railing by the crowd, in which El Grande Americano gets to be in the ring and take advantage of the fact that it is now a one-on-one and then wins the said match. So in this match, it's very simple. El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano. And they both killed it. And this just makes the setup for the WrestleMania match so much better. Because now we're going to have El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano. But it's curious. What makes me curious, though, is I wonder if it will be for the AAA Mega Championship, because it seems like with Dominic, there's going to be obviously a huge focus with him and Finn, which I would assume will lead up to a WrestleMania match. So it makes me think, will El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano be for the AAA Mega Championship on top of a mask versus mask match, which when you think about it, this will be a cool thing because we get to see a non-WWE title at a WrestleMania, which is pretty cool. But with that being said, El Grande Americano, of course, wins this match with the help again of El Rio and El Bravo, because he cannot win matches on his own. And it makes me believe if El Grande Americano keeps losing these matches like this, one, it just lets you know he will win at Mania. Number two, what backup, if any, will he have in terms of luchadors? Who knows? Moving on real quick, I want to talk about the promo that we got from Liv Morgan about Finn Balor. I'm not going to say too much on the promo itself because it was pretty straightforward. Liv feels like the Judgment Day now can thrive without Finn Balor. He's no longer holding them back because he was the veteran amongst the group. Now, this is fine, okay, but this payoff for this needs to be huge. I don't want Finn Balor to beat Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania, and then from this, we do nothing else with Finn Balor. I want Finn Balor to feel like a big deal again. I want us to care about Finn Balor. And if that means putting him in better stories, if that means putting him in title contestants, let's get him involved in Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, whatever the case. I would assume he'll stay on Raw at post-Judgment Day business. Moving on to our first title match of the evening, and I did say first, and it being AJ Lee versus Bayley, who won the women's gauntlet match last week to be the number one contender for AJ Lee's Intercontinental Championship. Now, this match was actually really fun. It is nice to see that WWE is giving AJ a lot of trust into her by allowing her to just dominate a good portion of the match, especially in the very beginning. It shows that she, although hasn't had a bunch of one-on-one matches for several years, her being a champion isn't a fluke. Her being a champion is not just a temporary thing. It's very much like AJ can go out there and put on just confidence in that ring, essentially is what I'm trying to get at. Now, of course, later in the match, Bayley does get opportunities to one-up AJ, and the two essentially were back and forth the rest of the match, in which, of course, AJ Lee does make Bayley tap out with the Black Widow. But it's what happens post-match that I cannot fathom the fact that WWE did this while there was a commercial break. But Becky Lynch returns and is beating up AJ, but we don't get to see it. Instead, we get to see a Papa John's commercial, Cricket Wireless with Jey Uso yeeting in the commercial again. Like why we did this, I don't know. I thought it would be a big deal. I would have loved to hear the pop to see Becky come out. But that being said, Becky Lynch attacked AJ Lee, and I think this is the obvious direction we're going to go into WrestleMania. I personally would not mind Becky Lynch winning the title back because I personally love heel Becky. I think heel Becky is awesome. Like, I want as much heel Becky as possible. That's not just me saying it. Other people are saying it. Sports Illustrated is also saying it. Moving on to our final title match of the evening. Penta wants to be a fighting champion. Cool. So Adam Pearce gives him Dragon Lee. And I was actually very excited about this because Dragon Lee has been able to have opportunity to show that he can put on bangers. Penta obviously puts on bangers. And what did they do? They both put on a lucha banger. Okay. They were both very back and forth. There was no, this person had the one up, that person had the one up. It does not matter. They were both hard hitting. The match was fast paced. It was hard hitting. It was so much fun to watch. Now, I personally thought that Gunther would cost Dragon Lee the match, but he lost clean. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it did a good job of just showing two luchas going crazy in the middle of the ring like that together. I highly advise, if you have not watched the match, to go back and watch that match. It was obviously a match of the night, especially when you have a stinker straight afterwards, which was Natty versus Maxine. And I don't know about y'all, maybe I'm giving Natty too much, giving her too much about the whole character and whatnot, man. But I said it before, I'll say it again. This character from Natty is not working. And I can't appreciate the fact that her mentality is once Maxine Dupree won the Intercontinental Championship that she stopped showing up to the dungeon. Like, who cares, Natty? If that's your sole reason to become this just Ronda Rousey looking badass, it's weak. It really is weak. And I can't get along with this. And plus, we're making Maxine look just super weak, bro. I thought WWE was doing a great thing by putting the title on her, having her have this character development with Becky that lasted a while, mind you, but it was good. Like, it was genuinely like you tune in and want to watch that. At least in my opinion, I did. I was there at Raw at Dallas when she first pinned Becky to start that whole rivalry, and I thought it was great. I thought it was a great payoff because she won the title. I don't know, man. This is not working for me. And yeah, it's just not good. It's not good. Natty won the match, by the way, because duh. Now, we do get a interview via Michael Cole, although it ended up not being an interview. If you've been living under a rock, we got Randy Orton having a historic heel turn against Cody Rhodes. And Michael Cole is supposed to get an interview from Randy via the Android-looking quality that they decide to send a video from. And literally in the beginning of the interview, Randy cuts him off, like, this is no longer going to happen, but I will leave you with one thing. And essentially he just talks about him being a killer, and wrestling has more than one royal family. As y'all know, Randy Orton, I believe, is a third-generation superstar, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe he's going to, roll heavy with that along with the rivalry with him and Cody Rhodes now. It was fine. No, it wasn't anything super crazy. I don't know why they decided to do the whole Android-looking quality. In my opinion, it did not make it look edgy. It made it look like why is it bad, For SmackDown, though, the heel turn's obviously a big deal. And it's funny because we had John Cena's heel turn, and now we have Randy Orton's heel turn for the Undisputed Championship. And it's just, I do have a video on the heel turn and the details of it and what my opinions were of it, if y'all want to go check that out before you finish the rest of this Raw recap. Now, for the last match of the evening being Stephanie Vaquer versus Raquel Rodriguez. This is definitely a match to where Raquel gets to beat up her friend's opponent prior to WrestleMania. And the match was good. The match was solid. I said it before, I said it again. I think Raquel Rodriguez is very much an improving superstar every single week. I feel like her match qualities get a lot better. I feel like she feels like a big deal. And I feel like you can feel her slams. You can feel her impact in that ring. And Stephanie is just Stephanie. She's great. She's awesome. The match was great. And Stephanie, of course, won the match with help of an unexpected Io Sky, who did not really make much of an impact because she comes into the match and follows Liv Morgan around the ring and gets thrown over the announcer table by Raquel. But that was also the reason how Stephanie won, because once they got back in the ring, Stephanie was able to do a roll-up pin 1, 2, 3. So, a part of me is kind of unsure of what they're going to do with this, because if Liv wins, then yeah, Stephanie can be involved in it for however long that WWE wants her involved in it for. But I feel like if Liv does win, then we have to have a payoff of Raquel coming after her friend, and then Raquel gets pushed out the Judgment Day too. And the only reason I say that is because every time Liv has been in the ring with Raquel, she loses. And we've had that kind of like moment where, there was some tension, but all of a sudden that tension is no longer talked about on TV. So I don't know. But the match itself was fine. I'm more involved in the story, though. So if Stephanie wins, then I think it depends how she wins at WrestleMania. Does Raquel accidentally cost her the championship, and that tension gets brought upon with her and Raquel, into which you don't need a championship? But I think it would make sense to have the championship involved in the Judgment Day, because that was like the sole reason, because Raquel had a run for the championship, So I don't know. But with that being said, we're going to talk about the main segment of the evening, in which Roman Reigns and CM Punk are both in the same ring together. Now, I am going to say, if you compare this promo segment between the two versus the first two they had, it doesn't necessarily hold up, but it does not mean that it was bad by any means. We get to have the Usos mentioned backstage a couple times tonight, to where Roman basically tells them, Punk is mine, but he gives permissions for all the Samoans to do what they got to do if need be prior to WrestleMania, so long as he has Punk at WrestleMania. And it was funny because Punk mentions that. He's like, are you sending all your Samoans after me? It was hilarious. He talks about how he calls him by his government name, Phil. And, how the whole premise of the promo essentially is that Punk is under Roman's skin. But Roman actually ones up him by showing just how much Roman is in Punk's head. Because everything that Punk is saying to Roman is repetitive, is redundant. Who's the real tribal chief? We've heard that for like the past 5 years, while Roman was the double champion and with Solo Sikoa's story. So he's saying a bunch of stuff that Roman has heard before, and therefore Roman feels unfazed. And then once we kind of get to the point where Roman's calling him delusional and all these things, he then calls him old. And I guess him calling CM Punk old, which he's older, that was enough for Punk to lay the first physical shots on Roman. And Roman is essentially smiling because he knows he's in his head. And if you want to check off the mental checkboard of that, cool, he got in his head. I'm just curious on what this means for the both of them post WrestleMania, because LA Knight said something interesting tonight while discussing with the Usos backstage. He says, we have a common enemy with the vision. However, if y'all are going back to Roman in terms of the bloodline starting back, then we're going to have an issue. And it makes me think if the bloodline is going to be semi-involved while we're dealing with the whole disrespect, because Punk still owes the Usos an apology kind of thing. So there's a lot of questions to this. However, I feel like we will have the payoff at WrestleMania to where whoever wins will know how they win. I think it'll make the most sense. At least I hope it does. And that's pretty much it. I mean, Raw was awesome tonight. I'm sitting in my chair that I'm sitting at right now, and I'm like at the edge of my seat the entire night from beginning to end. And this was a great Raw on the road to WrestleMania, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Now, once we get all the match cards, I will have a predictions video ready for you guys for who I believe will win each match at WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2. So, if you guys are also fans of other sports like football, basketball, or other combat sports like boxing, here at Cringeman Media, we try to appeal to everybody as well as we can. My name is Roddy, host of Ringside Conversations. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up and share, comment, like, and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much. Later.